Okay, so you finished the annotated bib and you're working on the final paper now. Hopefully, you see the connectivity between the annotated bib and this final paper. So, you're going to take the research that you collected and put together for the annotated bib, and you're going to answer that research question now in a paper that follows the MRAD structure. So you're basically going to answer the question about how writing functions in your specific scientific community using all of the research that you found and then putting it in an introduction, methods, result, discussion, conclusion, structure, and a little abstract as well. And this will give you practice actually writing and working with that form, one of the most predominantly used forms in science. Um, so, again, the final paper is asking you to take the research that you collected from the annotated bib and all of your knowledge now about how science writing works and to answer that question about how scientific communication and writing function. All right, so the next series of assignments for this unit are designed to give you a little bit more knowledge about scientific writing, but then really the units are designed to get you to draft out some of your final paper. So you'll have a discussion section that helps you draft out your methods and results. So your methods section essentially tells us what you did to collect research to answer your question. You learned how to navigate databases. You looked through different databases on the CWU library homepage. You learned how to navigate the library homepage. You located scholarly sources, secondary sources about how writing functions in the sciences. You used theories like rhetoric and rhetorical situation and discourse community to analyze the scientific community, to analyze those articles. You found primary research materials about your scientific discipline, whether it was their homepage that explained all of the goals and objectives for that particular discipline, syllabi that outlines a lot of the knowledge that's required um, to be learned to join this community, become a member of this community. You need to know how to write in these ways, to think in these ways, to be able to produce these types of documents and materials. So, again, the method section will identify all of the things that you did to collect data and information about your community. All right, and then the results will tell us all of the things that you learned collecting that research. So, using those frames from the previous readings, the Dan Melzer article about discourse communities, the rhetorical situation work from the first unit, there are all these different questions that you can pose about your community to give you answers to these questions, right? Like, how does your community write? What types of things do they write? Why do they use those particular types of forms? How does that connect to the ways that they think and collect evidence and create knowledge? How do they use tools? Which type of scientific tools do they use to make knowledge? How do they work in a lab? What types of communication and writing and ways of sharing information do they use, right? And how are those different in each community? So again, the results section of your final paper is an opportunity for you to really lay out a lot of smaller answers to those questions about how writing functions, how your community is using all these different things. And then the discussion section is essentially your opportunity to take something from the results section and to isolate it and to look at it a little bit more carefully. So, for example, you might have a huge list of things that you've learned about the community, but you might realize that only a few of those things are worth isolating and talking about more carefully. So maybe you noticed that your particular scientific community has a very unique way of putting together lab reports or a very unique way of doing something that is connected to this understanding of how writing and communication works in the field that you want to isolate and look at a little bit more closely. So the discussion section, as you're familiar with because you've looked over those in previous units, is more concise. It's a smaller section, like I said, that really digs into some of the analysis that's necessary for this paper. And then your conclusion, kind of wraps up the paper, and then you'll have a little abstract that kind of gives us a little overview, kind of a little movie trailer, so to speak, of the paper. So again, this final paper is really designed to get you to practice working with the MRAD structure, to get you to see how collecting research is really important before you start to write up the results and the discussion and the collection of that research. I think in the past you've probably tried to do research and the writing of the paper together, and that's very difficult. So again, this will teach you how to collect a bunch of research, how to form a question, think about your ideas a little bit, and then start writing. And I think you'll discover that the writing will go a lot smoother, a lot easier because you're operating from a body of knowledge that you've generated through your research and your annotated bib. You'll also notice that you'll probably need another source or two. I did set up a discussion for this unit that specifically asks you to grab a couple extra sources to complete the final paper. That's very typical. Very rarely does everything you find in your bib translate into your final paper, or is it enough? Usually you need to swap a source out for another, or add some more sources to the final paper. All right. So essentially, your citations for your annotated bib, you can cut and paste those onto your reference page for your final paper. So that's nice. You've already got your citations there. Whatever other sources that you add to the final paper, you'll need to cite those and put them on the reference page, but you won't need to create a new annotation for that. Again, use your sources from your bib to get started. Use some of those summaries from those sources to get started and to use as drafts for some of those sections if they work. And then again, you'll notice that the unit is set up for you to draft out these sections, to talk to each other, to give each other feedback, and then to continue to revise those. All right, so hopefully this gives you a better explanation of the final paper. If you need anything or you need some more explanation, please let me know. All right, I'll see you soon.